You're listening to the Wise Women Podcast, Season 2, Episode 26. I'm your host, Alisha Wilford, founder of Yoke and Abundance, a creative leadership coaching business. This podcast is designed to inspire by introducing you to creative women living abundantly. I hope you'll delight in this conversation with Jordan as much as I have. Here at Yoke and Abundance, we believe in community. We believe that you rise by lifting others. We believe that we are attracting abundance for ourselves and others. We believe in connecting to our entrepreneurial spirit to design our lives and connect our passions to purpose. We believe that we can shine our candles brightly because our candles will light 1,000 others. We believe I am wise, you are wise, and together we rise to connect this powerful Yoke and Abundance community, to get clear on your personal vision, to ensure you're living a life of powerful purpose. Join this season's session of In the Company of Women. Our unique 6-week online course begins February 20th at 7:30 p.m. To reserve your spot, visit the Yoke and Abundance website and go to our events and workshops page. That's www.yokeandabundance.com. A note about today's episode. This one contains some adult language, so if cursing isn't your thing or if you've got little ones around, skip this one or listen to it later. Today's interview is with my friend and SheWolf founder, Jordan Lacenski. Jordan is the alpha female of this badass pack of women. She's created a community for women founders who are growing their vision and need a place to let their hair down, connect over common business owners' issues, and support and encourage each other. Jordan is always honest and ready to support women who, like her, are up to big things. I hope you'll enjoy today's interview as much as I did, but first, a word from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Triad Local First, a nonprofit membership-based organization in Greensboro, North Carolina with members throughout the Triad. Triad Local First members include independent, locally owned retail shops, real estate agents, insurance brokers, marketing and advertising firms, accountants, dentists, restaurants, farmers, breweries, and more. TLF's mission is a commitment to building a strong local economy and a vibrant, unique community. For more information on how to support local independent businesses throughout the year, visit www.triadlocalfirst.com. Jordan Lacenski, thank you so much for being on the podcast this morning.
Heck yeah, I'm honored. I've been watching all the other guests and listening to their wisdom, and just really honored to be in the same pack of ladies.
We're excited to have you. So speaking of pack, can you tell everyone, what it is that you do and what your business is?
Yes, of course. So I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur, but in May of 2016 it happened. I was finishing my MBA. I was the director of marketing at a nonprofit, and some of the community members just started to ask me for marketing help. So I started Brand Boss Creative, which has now really evolved into solely a branding firm. At the time, we were doing a lot of ongoing marketing and consulting, and now we strictly build brands, and we have a really challenging but rewarding process to do that. We really dig in. And so then in that journey of being an entrepreneur with Brand Boss Creative and realizing that I needed help, that there were so many things that I was expected to know and so many things that were daunting and such an up and down roller coaster, I was lucky enough to have a really good friend who was also an entrepreneur in the creative space. And we had girls' poker nights quite often at her house, and we decided that we could really utilize each other to offer more to our clients. And we started just to talk about what a brand would look like that celebrates women who own businesses. And so that's where SheWolf Collaborative really was born and what it was founded on. And that was, both of those businesses began in 2016.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's funny, as you were talking, I wrote down so many notes because I have so many questions for you.
Yes, bring it on.
But before we do, would you like an animal spirit card?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Well, interesting thing. So yesterday I was coming home from yoga and I was...
A wolf is on the top.
Yeah. Yes. But oh my God, the she-wolf. Yes. But I was driving down the street into my neighborhood and literally a fox crossed my path.
Huh.
And I mean, we're in the middle of the city. I mean, I know that there
Right.
are fox everywhere, but we're in the middle of the city. I've lived here for almost, it's been 5.5 years. I've never seen a fox
Right.
cross my path in the neighborhood like that. So I'm taking it as a really good omen. And of course, I came to the animal spirit card. So it's like, what does the fox mean?
Yeah.
And the fox means that it's like a wise teacher is coming.
Oh.
And it's a good omen. It's a lot of wisdom and...
Cool.
So I was like, this is a really good omen.
I love it.
So if you could put your hands on the cards, take a couple big, deep breaths. And then when you're ready, just cut the deck into one or two piles. And then flip over whichever one you'd like.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. So you got the dragon, and this is only the second time I've had somebody on the podcast get a spirit card. And the spirit cards are the trump cards in the deck. There's only 7 of them.
Okay.
And they correspond with the 7 chakras in the body. And so it means that grace is surrounding you. That's like the overarching theme of a spirit
Girl,
card.
I'll be needing that right now.
So it's funny because the definitions for the spirit cards are much longer than a regular card. So I'm just going to read it to you because it's interesting. Seeing one's most true self, balancing the ego. The dragon sees everything. Its essence has been with us since before our first breath and will be there at our last. It watches us navigate the external world as well as our inner world. When dragon energy is awakened, we are courageous, visionary, and can easily drop into witnessing consciousness. It is almost as if we're traveling with a great friend inside ourselves. When we look in the mirror, deep in our eyes, we may even glimpse the self behind the self. The one who is watching us. This is the power of the dragon breathing transformative fire into every cell of our body. Witnessing this omnipotent energy, even for a brief moment, helps us surrender and let go. We let the dragon guide us. We hop on its back for a ride, and we traverse even the most difficult terrain. The dragon's eyes see beauty everywhere. It is said that if a yogi does not see beauty in the world, their Anjani is dim. Anjani is described as inner fire or sacred intelligence. May even just the mention of the dragon stir the embers of intelligence within you.
Oh, I love that. I'm gonna need to take a picture of that.
We will leave that out for you.
Fantastic.
How does that land?
Oh, girl. Well, thankfully, you and I are great friends, and we've had many tea dates recently where I've let you know just the up and down of. I actually had this discussion with my husband last night. We were talking about. Like my mom is a very positive person. My office mate is a very positive person, like always focusing on the positive. And I so want to be that. I want to be this person that sees the good in everything and manifests amazing positivity. But at my core, I'm just not sure that I am. I like really appreciate realness. Like if I meet with somebody and I met with them for the first time, and like I had a meeting last week, and the gal is also an entrepreneur, and it's my first time meeting her, and she was like, yeah, I cried this morning. And I instantly was like, I can trust this girl, this beautiful woman. She's real, she's honest, she's vulnerable, and I just am really attracted to that. And I think I tend to go in the other direction of like being so real that it's maybe more negative than people would like, or maybe it comes off pessimistic, and I don't ever want it to be that way. But I think I just find some kind of safety in just like speaking the truth,
Yes.
I guess, even like the really ugly pieces of that, whether it's marriage or family or business. So yeah, I feel like I'm constantly balancing that as well. I think, business wise, right this minute, we're dealing with things that are inevitable, but a client is wanting to quit the project early and picking apart the contract, and there are terms in there to protect both sides. And so, of course, when that happens, just like anything else in life, it's a good amount of conflict.
Right.
And so while on the outside, I think people probably have a perception that I am like cool with conflict, like I don't have an issue with it. Inside it like crumbles me. Like I feel like, okay, I have to stand up for my company, or I have to stand up for my staff, or I have to stand up for myself. That's the hardest one, right? And I almost feel paralyzed in that, and I have an amazing amount of anxiety around that discussion. And I start to like play out in my mind, how are they going to respond? What if she comes back and says XYZ? What if she hires a lawyer? I mean, just all of those things, right? Because I feel like if I prepare myself for those things emotionally, then I'll be able to handle them better. And so the fact of just like picturing myself is like way more woo-woo than I normally get, but like picturing myself.
Like the self behind the self that I was talking about.
Yeah, all of this is like, but like on the back of a dragon, like obviously I'm gonna go Game of Thrones with this, like definitely like Mother of Dragons, favorite character.
I mean, I was thinking never ending story on the back of a dragon, but like that's...
I'm like, she's like just such a badass,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, you're just like, she's a warrior, and she's like got these dragons that have her back. And so picturing myself like, I have this fire. I know I have this fire, right?
Yes.
I know that I can like conquer great things, and I know that I'm the kind of person that's like, I'm not going down. Like the ship is not going down. Like failure is not an option. But I'm still a human being, and it's hard not to take things personally. It's when you go through those conflicts in your business, ultimately I know on the other side of that, there's like a really great lesson and like blah, blah, blah. But like, it's really hard in the moment, And yeah, so I think thinking about myself really having that balance of both,
Yes.
And getting really just a different vantage point of what's happening, I think is good.
Yes.
And I think we're always needing to balance our ego. Like
Of course.
I mean, even if you don't think you have ego, you do. I think like if you're like, if you're like, oh, but I'm like so shy and I don't like that, you almost have ego in that, it's like, we're just very focused.
Ego can be another word for like your persona, like even how you imagine yourself. Mm-hmm. What you were just talking about, being the one that, wanting to be positive.
Yeah.
I don't think that naming the reality of things means that you're not positive. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure you know who Danielle Laporte is, right? She wrote The Desire Map. It's, I love that book. I really respect her work and her planner. I have it every day. And in the last maybe 3 years of her planner, there's always a spot that says, what do you want to change? And it says, and the subtext to that is name it so you can tame it.
Okay.
And unless you're willing to look at what's not going well, unless you're willing to address what isn't working, you can't change it.
Right.
So while I also am a very positive person, I'm a positive realist because I believe that if I can name what's wrong, it doesn't mean I need to dwell in it and roll around in it, but I can name it and tame it and move forward. And that's something that I appreciate about you, is that you very much are willing to be real, and you're willing to take off that mask of wanting people to see a certain persona and just be who you are. And I think that, that really leads me into what I really want to talk about today, which is SheWolf.
Yeah.
And the community that you're building with SheWolf, because I think that your realness and your ability to kind of break down the walls that divide and bring people together into a pack, into a community. I think that realness is what attracts people to that community. So can you talk to us a little bit about SheWolf and what you're building and what you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, SheWolf started 2 years ago, and really it existed as a collaborative, where women in the creative industry could work together on larger projects. Yes. Within that experience, I became a glorified project manager.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. I'm sure I have like certain leadership skills that are really great. That's not one. So it was difficult for everyone, and the whole team was remote because I had moved several times throughout my entrepreneurial journey. And we started to interview the women that were involved, and then I started to go to different conferences and travel, and really got to see firsthand what other communities experience when it comes to women in business. And the value really just came back as this community piece, like having your go-to gals that you can call and say, hey, my client wants to end the contract early. What do I do? I think everyone needs to have their personal board of directors, and everyone needs to have...
I'm actually doing a speech on having a personal board of directors. Oh, it's so funny that you said that.
At the Women's Summit?
League, yes.
Kick ass. I love it.
But yes,
that's a fantastic event. They do a really great job with that.
Yeah.
Good. I want to attend. So yeah, this community and these people around you that are trustworthy and are going to celebrate your success with you, but they'll be real. There's that theme again, being real. And so I think, yes, we hire consultants. I have a lawyer, I have an accountant, I have a bookkeeper, I have different consultants, and I think that's important. But how do you even know the right people to go to? How do you navigate the best way to approach that? Who is the right person to go to when you have, it's like building a house. It's like, I want to hire like an architect to build a very modern house. Well, I'm not going to go to like someone who builds log cabins. That's just not their jam, right? So how do you find the right people that are a good fit for you? And I think that piece is really important. I think for women, the other piece that's just as important is the fact that other people have gone through what you're going through.
Right.
Just like your sister saying, oh yeah, I've totally gone through that with a client. Just makes you feel less alone in that and less of a failure in that. And it's just, that alone I think is such a calming, way to approach what you're dealing with.
And, it might be cliche to say it, but entrepreneurship can feel like such an island.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You feel like you're out there, and it's like you feel like you've been stranded on this island sometimes where, like there's no food and there's no water without salt in it, and you don't know what to do or where to turn.
Right.
And then, when you find someone that you can be real with, it's like you want to hang on to them like a lifeboat sometimes, like they're your buoy. Yeah. And then like how do you spread that love around, right? Like you don't want to suffocate that relationship.
Right. So we found that was the value. And that's a great analogy because we use, obviously I'm in branding, so I can't help it, but we use the hunt, we call it the hunt. So when you own a business, even if you have staff, even if you have that kind of pack, you're still the one in charge. Yeah. And all those people are looking at you saying, how do we handle this? What do we do next? What's the decision? And again, that can feel super lonely. And I think, women, we tend to network with like our staff and people that are in the same space as us. And it's really great. I think it makes us really unique, and it gives us a different edge when we're building cultures. But it also can be challenging when you need to make the decision that maybe the rest of the team doesn't like, but it's best for the business.
Right.
So it is super lonely. We always call it the hunt, and you just don't need to hunt alone. And it's kind of like that eat or be eaten. Like business really is. Like we live in America where the competition is huge, and everyone can access your competition by picking up their phone and scrolling Instagram. It's such a digital world, and business is competitive. However, we really believe that it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. Like the more you niche, the better off you are.
Right.
And even if there's another branding company that does exactly what I do, which there are plenty, I do it differently. You know, the value that I bring is different from the value that they bring. And I'm probably targeting different people. And the value that I would get from learning how they do things, or even having them understand how I'm trying to build my company and vice versa, is so much bigger than, oh, I don't want to give them my secrets because they might steal my clients. Like, I do think you have to be protective of that, but I feel like when women come together and really give each other honest feedback, help each other grow, stand together in this entrepreneurial journey, like, crazy awesome things happen.
Yes.
We're connectors by nature. We love to connect people. We're givers, you know, and so I think there are things that make us really strong that can also bring us down in terms of, you know, we give so much. So it's nice to have other women say, don't give that away for free.
Right.
You need to charge for that. That's a value.
Or you're not charging enough.
Right.
And people aren't going to take you seriously if you don't charge more.
Right. Exactly. So those things are really important. So now SheWolf has morphed into this, it's a membership community. The early access program launched on January 1st, 2019. So we're 1 month in, and it's been such an interesting discovery process. You know, I didn't really want to start this. I felt like this is so much work. My co-founder actually was like pushing for a community for a long time. Like, let's charge people to be a part of this. And I just couldn't wrap my head around, what does that look like? What does it entail? That sounds like so much work. That sounds like I have to nurture this community all the time. I don't know if I have the energy for that. And then I would start to travel, and, you know, we moved away from Montana and we moved to Greensboro, North Carolina, and I was like looking around for female networking, and there wasn't anything like there was in Bozeman. And I would start to go to different events, and I just was smacked in the face with this realization that we really haven't come as far as we thought we had. You know, we're all so hungry for it. If you go to any of those conferences, you watch all the women in the audience and they're like taking notes because this person with a microphone is telling them exactly how to succeed, right? And some of the things that person with the microphone is saying, in my opinion, are sometimes archaic or
Can you give us an example of some of those things?
Oh, yeah. So I'm all about, you know, like I mentioned, like the self-care piece and the positivity piece, that's important. But when you go to a conference where men are being interviewed, it's just not a question that they're asked. They're not asked like, oh, how do you feed your kids and have a business? Please tell me. You know, like that's just not, nobody cares. I mean, but as a woman, for whatever reason, historically and societally and all these things, we love to ask those questions. Like, how do you balance your life? How do you go to the gym and have a job? How do you have kids, and how do you pack the lunches? And how do you, you know, like all of those types of questions. And to me, it's like, I'm sorry. Like, I want to know how you're managing a multi-million-dollar business. Yeah. That's why I'm here.
Yep.
Everyone can feed their kids however they want. Not really of interest to me. Like, you know, like it's just that blows my mind. And then there are a couple, you know, I spoke at a conference in Utah. The venue tried to shut it down. They were, I was shocked, but I was at the organizers at her house for the breakfast, and she was talking about the emails that were coming through at midnight the night before her event, where they were trying to shut this conference down because they felt like it was sexist because it was only for females. And
but that wasn't what was actually happening. It was because of religious reasons that they wanted to shut it down, right?
That as well, yes. The name of their company has a swear word in it, so that was a big deal.
Like they didn't know that before the venue was booked.
Yeah, just, you know, it got to the right person who also, you know, the person in charge, and that person in charge had issues with the conference. I went to a conference here in North Carolina, in Raleigh, huge organization running this conference, and some of the advice given was like, oh, when you're networking, remember to smile. And
oh, goodness.
It's like, yeah, we all know that, but know your audience. You're looking at women and you're telling them to smile.
It comes off in this day and age. I wouldn't think if you're a woman and you're not offended by that, then you're not awake.
Yeah, I think it's just, so I need to walk into a business meeting with like a huge ass grin on my face.
Right.
And like, maybe even with that extra Southern accent, welcome, brought y'all coffee, like, so glad you're meeting with me. Like, again, men don't do that either. And so it's just such an interesting, to me, I didn't feel like I was being fed any of the things that I really wanted.
Right.
And not only that, but it was like alarming to me that people are like writing down and soaking up these things that are not where we are trying to go as women in business.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to exclude men, okay? All of my consultants, all my top consultants are men because they were recommended to me. I have a relationship with them. The way they communicate with me, I appreciate. They're like, they're super harsh. I love that. It's like if I'm going to go to the gym, I want like a drill sergeant in my face, like yelling at me. That motivates me,
right?
Like personally. So these
and it pisses me off.
Yeah. Right. So that would not be a good fit for you. But I'm all about them.
Yeah.
Like, you want a six-pack? Move it. You know? Like I'm like, yeah, I do. Okay. So I'll go for it. You know? And I think like having consultants that just flat out say, and how much money are you taking home after that? Because oftentimes as women, we think about that last.
Yeah. I just finished up getting my taxes ready to go to my accountant.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
How much you paid yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah. Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there are, and let's be real here, like historically, okay, what was it, in like the late 80s, a woman couldn't even have a small business loan without
and in the 70s, a
signing.
woman couldn't buy her own house.
Right. So while we have really come far, historically, the people that have the most business experience are not women.
Right.
And so I don't know about you, but it's not like my dad sat me down at the kitchen table and like went through how to balance a checkbook and went through, you know, how to negotiate your salary. Like none of those conversations happened for me ever. And so, but I worked in male dominated industries and I watched closely how they negotiated things. And it was such an awesome learning experience. I mean, it was crazy at times, like, you know, it was like super like HR department nightmare, but it was, I had such a cool seat at this table because I was the only chick in this like sea of C-suite men. And I wasn't C-suite, I was just the only one representing that department. But I got to see how sales talks to accounting and how, I mean, just all the pieces and how they work together. And it was fascinating for me and it was such a huge value. But yeah, I didn't negotiate my first salary. So then when I wanted a raise, how much harder was it? You know, so all those things were learning the hard way. And so if there are men that want to sit at the table that we're building, like, hell yeah, come on. If you're like here to support what we're doing, like, yes, you're invited. There's some rules in there, you know, the membership space is an online network for female founders and CEOs with existing businesses, right? But we have like preferred partner programs where these experts, like my CFO, for example, might step in and say, these are the things that you really need to focus on in your KPI dashboard. These are the things that you really need to focus on in terms of your expenses. Let's talk about accrual versus cash. Let's talk, you know, all the things that we're supposed to be experts in. And I think it is important that as a CEO of your business, even you are, that's what you are, and it's okay to claim it. You have to have a good handle on the books. You're the one making the decisions based on what is in the books. Yeah. And that was a hard lesson for me. That's not my strength. So I was like, I'm going to hire an accountant. We're going to have like the CFO package. She's going to help me guide, you know, my business in the right direction. And it doesn't do me any good unless I get into QuickBooks and I see what's happening. Unless I'm projecting what my year is going to look like. And when I say year, like a year from now, a year from today, not like January through December. So all of those things, it's just like, this like a long, super long rambling answer, but that's what I'm all about. And I feel like the more I meet really amazing women, they roll in circles with other really amazing women, and I want to know them, and I want to connect them.
Yeah. Can you talk to us about who the SheWolf community is ideal for?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that we realized too is that there's so many, well, there are more resources for women in tech businesses. There are more resources for female business owners to start businesses. So like when they're kind of in that idea phase and they're in the beginning. But then your business is growing. And let's say, you hit the 6-figure mark. And then let's say you hit the 7-figure mark. Well, your business is shifting dramatically. And if you have a staff, you're expected to go from, what maybe started as a solopreneur gig to being this CEO and leading this team. And guess who doesn't know how to do that? Most of us, we're like learning as we go, and we're hiring consultants and all of that. And so we saw this gap for women in that space. Like, all right, my business is growing and I want it to grow.
Yes.
I'm driven. This isn't like, there's nothing wrong with a side hustle, but that's not what this is.
Right.
I have a business. I want to grow this sucker. I want to retire with this thing, and I want to leave it as a legacy. My goal is to hit the 7-figure mark, whatever that goal is. I want to grow my staff. I want to expand to other cities, whatever your vision is.
Yes.
But there was a gap for those women. There's amazing organizations like Elevate and some other female in business organizations where you can network online and in person. But what I was finding is that even the women that I would meet there, not all of them were owned their own business.
Right.
And there's a difference in
absolutely there is
somebody else handling, like, yeah, you're climbing a ladder, like you're C-suite or whatever, but you're not putting payroll on your Amex when you need to. You're not like dipping in your line of credit when seasonality hits. You're not taking loans out to expand the business. Like those decisions and the risks that you take as a business owner
are not present for people in corporate America.
Exactly.
And it's not that they don't have their own set of risks.
Yeah,
they're just very different.
Right.
Yeah, that makes complete sense.
If somebody sues, you as a business owner,
what is that like?
It's real different.
Yeah, it's very different. Listening to you talk about all of these things around female entrepreneurship and being a business owner and specifically a female business owner, what are your 3, I normally ask the question, like, what would you go back and tell your high school self, which I will ask you that.
Yeah.
However, I'm really curious what you would what are your 3 top pieces of advice for a female founder?
Okay. Get really solid on your vision. And your values, which I know you do so much work in this. And I know it sounds like, for example, when we brand for people, I'm not going to sketch anything. My designers are not going to push pixels around until way later. Like we always compare that to building a house, like the foundation, where are we laying it? What material is best? What are these pillars standing on? Like that is so important. It doesn't matter. Like you could say, I'm starting a retail store today and tomorrow I'm going to totally shift it to like a rent the runway model. I don't know. No matter where that goes, your values should still be
right
in that foundation. You could like demolish and start over and your values are still holding you strong.
Absolutely.
And the people that work with you. And so I would say really figure out what that is. And like side note, like the SheWolf brand, when people hear it, they have a reaction, obviously. And we thought of it at a girls' poker night with, lots of adult beverages. And then the next day said, okay, let's keep it, But at that moment, all we knew is that we really wanted to support women in business. And at the time, it was like maybe just in the creative industry, we just felt like 10 years from now, if we end up being like a VC fund, I don't know, whatever we transition into, that is our vision and our values stand on that,
yes.
No matter what. So SheWolf will apply. The name SheWolf will apply. And it was like, I know generationally, again, it's like you need to be professional. Image is important. I do feel like those
you and I were just
important.
talking about image.
Image,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And But I can tell you that there are very successful business owners in Bozeman, Montana that wear hiking boots and leggings to the office.
Because
it's just
while
a different
image
culture.
is important,
Right.
it is different. I feel like we are in a different day and age.
Yeah.
And people want to see authenticity over quote unquote professionalism. And so if you are a true individual and you have, truth in your heart, if your authenticity shines through,
right,
people buy into that why more than they buy into a canned image.
Oh, yeah. And I think, like, if you think about the brands that you're loyal to, like Patagonia.
Shinola.
Yeah. Like, they get political with it. They have a stance. As a company, this company has a personality.
Yes.
And the personality is pretty apparent in everything they do. And it might cause certain people to not buy their products. They're not worried about it because those are not their target market.
Right.
So that's what I would say. So the first thing is, like, just own that. Right. That you have to be careful with what you say. I mean, there's a balance, right? However, like, if your voice is one of, like, howling at the moon, like SheWolf says, like, everything on our website speaks to that.
Yes.
Everything is like that initial reaction you get with, like, the word SheWolf. Like, everything on our site is like, this is who we are. This is what we're about. What's up?
Fierce, badass.
We
go-getters.
Swear. Yeah. I mean, so I think that's really important, is to know who you are as a business, and stay true to that. The second thing I would say is have the capital to invest in building your little castle with the right people by your side. And even if you're starting something all by yourself, and talk to someone about the size of my business. Do I need a CFO when I have a $100,000 business? No, you don't. But you could ask a CFO to consult you once a year.
Right.
Just to make sure that you're on the right track. I think, for me in the creative industry, having a lawyer that understands creatives and really getting specific on our contracts was super important for me.
Yeah. And
I learned that the hard way starting. And so I think, had I started with someone asking me those really hard questions around, well, who has the rights to this? What kind of files do you deliver? How long does it take you to deliver those? If the client, asks for 15 edits of the same logo, then what happens? Is the price different? Is it, all these stipulations?
Yes.
And this is where, like, me planning for the worst actually came in handy. But having that to protect your business is really important, and that's not selfish.
Right.
And it protects the clients that you're working with too. So I think, depending on your industry, having someone, and that might be a banker. There are big banks that are really, really great, but when you're in the building stage, having one person that understands your business, understands what you're trying to do, that you could call and say, hey, I'm totally rebranding. I need a line of credit. Or, hey, I don't know what's going on with this check. Whatever the banking things are, it is really, really still important, I think, to have a personal relationship with a banker or a lawyer, whatever your industry is. So that's the second thing. The third thing is, leverage your relationships. I think that especially when you're starting, you have to be able to ask people to support you. You have to be able to sell. Even if you just have this awesome network and people are just coming to you because they think that you're great, like, at some point that's going to run out. The referrals will run out, and you have to be able to put yourself out there.
Absolutely.
And I will tell you that it is really weird to do that when it's your own business.
Absolutely.
I was in sales. I could, like, sell the hell out of some beer. I mean, it was, like, easy for me to walk in and, like, brag on, like, how amazing this beer was and how limited it was and how I've saved this keg just for you, Mr. Bar Owner, and the culture behind the brewery, and, like, oh yeah, and the brewery rep's gonna come. I mean, because I had this brand to stand on. When it's you and it's your brand, there's all this internal talk that happens with, like, that sometimes prevents you from being able to sell it to that degree. So get comfortable with that. I would say, like, do all the weird, even if you don't like care about public speaking, even if you're a designer and you want to sit in your house and design, well, you have to have clients to do that. And so having a network of people is super important. And then being able to tell them what you're doing. If you can't tell them in like 1 minute, then you need to like refine your 1 minute commercial, right? But being able to leverage the people around you is really important, and you can't do that unless they know what you're up to and how they can support you. So you have to get comfortable with asking, and you have to get comfortable with pitching. So like sign yourself up for like pitch competitions. Go watch people pitch to, you know, VCs if there's something like that, if there's like those types of competitions, and watch like the structure of their pitch, and because that will help you
refine your own. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that will help you in a one-on-one sales meeting with a potential client,
you customer. Know, when I was really getting serious about launching Yoke and Abundance as a coaching business, I was doing B School, Marie Forleo's B School, and in the before you even start B School, you have to do a module called Start the Right Business. And so she suggests to you that you survey a minimum of 25 people about your business. And it's that, like, learning how to talk quickly and concisely about what it is that you're doing. And it was because of that I knew I had something that I could make some money on, because I sold from those interviews.
Yeah.
And so it's one of the things that I think is the most important for people to do. It's like, yes, I know you think you have this great idea, and yes, go for it. But before you invest a ton of time and energy and heartache and skin and sweat, go talk to other people about it.
Right. And what's your exit strategy from day one? We don't think about that often. It's like I'm not gonna be doing this forever. I'm not gonna brand when I'm like 99, you know, hopefully not. Hopefully I'm like still chilling, drinking a Mai Tai somewhere, you know, but I think hopefully probably on my couch, but you need an exit strategy. What's your goal? Do you eventually want to sell this? Do you want to pass this down to
Do you want to
someone
be a
else?
Silent partner? And
What does it look like? So having an idea of what that looks like too from an early stage, I think, is important.
So these 3 pieces of advice, having a solid vision and values, having the capital to start up and have the right people on your team, even if it's a small team, and leveraging your relationships. I think that's something that so many people can really use. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You know, shifting gears a little bit, you know, given that you're someone that is so real about everything, I would love it if you could talk about a time where you felt like you failed, or a time that you maybe stumbled in business. And you know, what was it that happened, and what did you learn from that experience?
Oh, so many of those. I feel like early on in my business, I learned a lot of things the hard way, which I'm thankful for, because the stakes were not as high.
We didn't know how high the stakes were.
Well, we weren't playing around with, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was like, okay, it's a major setback, you know, but it didn't like crush me completely. I have learned to, oh my gosh, I don't know, so many, like, put out the fire before it starts. I think especially in the creative field, it's like very like ambiguous. It's very fluffy sometimes. It's like a lot of gray area, and you're the expert. It's interesting, like when you go get like surgery, you may or may not want to know what they are doing to your body when you're under anesthesia, but you just trust that they are the expert because they have this training. And, you know, like there are certain fields where it's like this kind of power, you know, this expertise that you just trust, like automatically. In like a service industry, especially in the creative field, I think in most every other industry, you have to build trust.
Right.
And so I'm great at that. And then there have been a few projects that, like, somewhere along the line, they didn't understand what I thought they understood about the process or about the pricing or about the rights to, you know, large projects. So I've had, early on, I had someone really frustrated with the fact that they went way outside of scope and their bill was a lot larger than they thought it was going to be. And I felt like I communicated that pretty well, but apparently it was not. And so I think just do a change order. You know, I think like there were things like that it's like, okay, we need a pause. And you've gone through your 3 edits for this huge design project, and you have made some changes on your end that cause us to now redesign. And so I have to pay my people and cover my costs. So let's take a pause early, before, when you see that it's getting close to that point, you know, not like, oh yeah, and you're gonna have to pay another 20 grand for us to finish. Like, that's not a good way to approach that. So I learned like putting the fire out before it starts is really important in terms of, okay, let's pause. Let's do a written change order that you sign and accept for us to move forward. I think sometimes we feel like, oh, we have to take all the clients and we have to make everybody happy because we're in that like feast or famine, you know, like scarcity mindset for our businesses. And so I learned, you know, that's important. I also learned not everybody's my customer. And then most recently I learned like I thought I was vetting pretty well and I'm not. You know, so I need to like take a step back. What questions am I asking initially?
Gosh, I feel like that's a great analogy for life too. Like,
oh yeah,
do a change order, right? Like, where in relationships can you like put the pause on where things are going? I mean, you and I have done that, and done it successfully, and
communicated.
And it's about communication and respect, and I think that's not only a great example for business, but a really great example for life too, of how to have healthy boundaries with people.
Oh yeah, totally agree. Yeah, boundaries are so important. Yeah, I would say that's another one.
Yeah,
throw boundaries out. We could talk forever about boundaries.
Yeah, oh my God. We're gonna to be continued. We're gonna be having a panel on boundaries.
Oh, good. Yeah. So. Some of the other things I feel like I've learned, or like I would tell, like the more you grow and the more you like pursue your vision, the more people like are not gonna get it. You need to check yourself a little bit. If everybody doesn't get it, you might need to like examine what you're doing. But I mean, it's pretty likely that some of your best friends or your family just don't quite understand why or what you're doing when you're pursuing like a larger vision and trying to build a company.
And that's entrepreneurship, period. Whew. I mean, my family wants to understand what I'm doing. They want to be supportive of me, but they just don't get it. I mean, and you know what? That's okay.
Yeah, it is. So you find the people that do, and you just don't have those expectations for your family. Right. I think that's important.
You just lower the bar. You're like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, my mom looks at me like I have a third eyeball every time I talk about anything with my business. She's like, so you don't want that client? Yeah. And I'm like, right. Why? You know, like, she just doesn't quite. You have limited time, resources, and money. And you have to manage all of those really wisely. So you need to have a plan. And then I think celebrate your wins, you know, like take a minute, celebrate your wins. Also understanding that like, I don't know what in our head has us think that, oh, once like I'm in business for 2 years and I survive, I'm out of the deep end, you know? It's like, no. Then a tsunami comes and takes you right back. You know, I don't know. It is just like a constant learning experience, a constant like pick yourself up, dust yourself off. And you will always have challenges. Like the stress never goes away. I think you just get more used to dealing with it. Yeah. Which, you know, I think it's not for everyone.
And that's okay.
It's
not everybody is cut out to be an entrepreneur.
I am so thankful that I have people on my team that like to be in a supportive place. Right. You know, they're the doers. Yeah. Like, thank God. What is it? Like 5% of the population has like the business owner bone or whatever. Yeah.
So there's those of us that are thrown into it, right? That like, you just have to make this vision happen. So you've got to like grow thicker skin to make that happen.
Right. Yeah. So I think analyzing like, is this the right move? And I think now it's like very sexy. There's so many people starting businesses. And even with SheWolf, I will tell you, I went down a list of other things that could check the boxes that I was trying to check before I started this thing. Like I was like, oh, I could just start an Elevate chapter here because we don't have that resource here. I could just start a chapter here. Or I could just, there's this really cool thing in Bozeman. Let me call her and see if I could start that here. It was like a Women Who Wine. She's Babs. Oh my gosh. Shout out to Babs at Alara Jewelry. She's so amazing. And she gave me like all of these resources for free. She should have charged me for that, but because I wanted to start a Women Who Wine, and I was trying to start all these things that would like check the boxes. And then I would go to another conference and I would just get like smacked in the face with like, but there's nothing for these women that are trying to be CEOs of their own businesses. There's nothing for women to like bond together and grow. Like we get to that place and we still have the like, there's only one seat at the table, right. Mindset. Generationally, like that has been huge. We've discovered a lot about that. Yeah. So yeah, I think you have to be really self-aware.
Jordan, thank you for all of that.
That's great
a lot. Advice.
I could go on forever.
Yeah, I'm curious, what is one piece of advice, if you could sit down little Jordan,
okay.
Graduating from high school, what would you tell her?
Oh, fuck the status quo. I think it's so funny. I think so I'm 33. I think you know everything when you're younger, right? You're like, I know exactly who I am and who I want to marry and who, whatever. How about you don't have to get married if you don't want to, Just the different thing. I think I would just say, if you want to be an architect, start to take all the classes to do that. I know everyone else is taking AP history, but you don't need to do that if that's not what you want to do. I think there's I don't know. I had a high performance, pressure always, and because I'm competitive, with myself too. But I think I would just tell myself to I look at how I want to decorate my house now, and it looks very different from all of my friends, and that's okay. Just the things that I feel like I finally come into my own that have always been a piece of me.
Yes.
I've always been a little funky. I've always been a little weird. And I think I only embraced that so much. I definitely was a follower a lot. And I think I would just go back and tell myself whatever,
Yeah.
Express yourself the way you want to.
And what's so beautiful about that is now I see you doing that with your business.
Oh,
thanks. Your business is an expression of expressing yourself the way you want to.
Yeah.
And because you do that, you're giving other women and especially other CEO founders a space to do that too.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for giving that to all of us.
Yeah.
Such a gift. And last question, how do you live a life of abundance?
Oh, I am another thing that I've learned about myself is that I'm an extroverted introvert. So I really love introverted time. I really do. And I used to be super, 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 super busy all the time and not allow myself to just be alone with myself. I think at the time when I was younger, I didn't like myself that much. So of course I didn't want to hang out with me. Well, now I do really like myself and, and I love rest time. And so for me, abundance is the luxury of spending one day a week just waking up when I want to, taking time drinking my coffee, not caring what my hair looks like, just we have a really sweet cozy house, and I love to hang out with my dogs, read, sit outside, throw the ball, just take my time.
Right.
I think I don't do it always. I'm typically on the go, but one day a week, I really do try to just shut it down.
Yeah, slow it down.
Yeah.
Jordan, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
It's great to have you. I hope today's episode inspires you to get to know your entrepreneurial side a little better, whether you're a business owner or not. Get comfortable looking deeply at what's happening in your life and your business and call things like you see them. And if you're loving the Yoke and Abundance Wise Women podcast, please head over to iTunes, fill in some stars for us, and let other people know what they can expect by writing us a review. It's an easy gesture that can have a major impact for a podcast. Thank you so much for being a part of the Yoke and Abundance community. Don't keep this podcast a secret. Please take 10 short seconds and share this podcast on social media or with a friend. Check out our website, yokeandabundance.com, to sign up for the online session of In the Company of Women, or schedule your free discovery call with me to bring clarity to what you most want and build the roadmap to get there. A huge thank you to our sponsor, Triad Local First, and my wonderful editor and producer, Ira Sterling at Julia Sound Recordings. Remember, every one of us has wisdom within. Keep sharing your words of wisdom because you never know who you'll inspire.